So I'm back here again. I have a feeling, some reason, that I won't be making videos soon. I don't know why. But something I found, what I think that is very important, is that I think the reason for mortality in humans is caused by radiation, which is what causes the half-life in humans to begin with. But I think what can happen is that some materials have such a rapid decay rate that they don't have a long enough time to develop into stronger materials like non-organic ones. So I'm thinking what makes an organic material organic to begin with is that it has such a rapid decay rate that it can't function independently from other materials, which is why we need food. And what I found is that if there was a way to prolong this from reducing the radiation in the world or in a very specific environment, then non-organic materials could form into, organic materials could form into non-organic materials. And I found that radiation, from what I've been researching metaphysically, is that physically radiation I don't think should happen, because I thought about atoms and why uh, atoms even have electromagnetic fields to begin with, of like why the electrons and protons even rotate around like an agreed upon area. And I found that for each individual atom, there is a magnetic field that is caused by an individual consciousness. And so that magic is really tapping into that consciousness and merging them with human emotions, which are the closest thing to that smallest formation, and merging them so that a person can manipulate, or I guess guide is a better word, these forces into real physical entities. Which means that it could be possible that just with your mind, you could move elements or create new elements just by channeling the motions of those separate pieces into one harmonious one, and they would self-correct themselves to harmonize into a single material, which is where you get things like chemistry, but also alchemy. And with that, it is possible with your magnetic field, such as like a ghost has, is as long as you have that field, you could possibly regenerate material out of nothing, I think. And there's what I've found from studying metaphysics is like radiation, what happens is that those fields are very unstable and so they decay over time. But based on what I found, there's no reason that they should decay to begin with. So it's like nothing seems to actually be causing that. Like there's no specific reason. Like the reason things decay at all and don't just stay the same way forever seems to be an unnatural state. And what I'm finding is that maybe the earth itself wasn't created for disease, but maybe was created out of disease to show that life could even come from the darkest places, which is coming from disease itself. But the problem with that is that it, through flawed morality, then people coming from darkness could be doomed to darkness forever, which is what sin is or death is. But, anyways, the radiation is, what I'm finding is that it's a metaphysical, it has a metaphysical root that in the metaphysical realm, it comes from physical entities that exist in a metaphysical space. So what that means is that if you imagine like a physical thing like a rock or a parasite, a physical one, if they existed in a physical space, I mean, as a physical material in a metaphysical space, which is like the dream world or mind place, whatever, it would express itself as radiation in the physical world. So the thing is that all of these high levels of radiation in the environment, even though they don't have any scientific like suggestion for a parasite in the metaphysical realm, I based on what I found is that there seems to be some form of entity that is causing radiation that shouldn't exist there because there's no reason for it to be there. So it's like, how could you have radiation exist in the environment even though there's no real cause for it? Is that the only way that could happen is if it's something's happening in the metaphysical space. And since I found so many diseases from studying nature that no one seems to be recognizing and seem to be invisible to the human eye and perception that they even exist there, I'm concluding that there's some form of leech in the metaphysical realm, which is what connects us to the astral realm. So it's like the dream world. So it's that the dream world is the place you go in your dreams, obviously, but it's also still there during the day. Like it's always there, but we need to sleep because that's where we get our immortality. Hypothetically, if the dream world was completely merged with the physical realm, we would never need to sleep. And the reason we do that at night is because something with the sun is blocking that from happening. So it's like that's why we can only sleep at night. It's like when the sun is down. It's because something with the sun is actually blocking the dream world from merging with the physical one. And since I know that UV rays cause radiation, apparently they cause cancer, even though they really don't seem to have any reason to do so. Like, I know scientifically they lead to that, but there's no real cause for why they would do that in the first place. Or something that's natural like the sun. And you would think, whether you believe in evolution or not, whether God made people to live with the sun or people evolved living near a sun, is that we would naturally be adapted to those UV rays. Is that if they were natural. But the fact that they exist and they're not man-made in any way would suggest that it would have to be something unnatural, which would be a disease. So the unnatural thing would be a form of will or consciousness, which would be a living entity that is causing high levels of radiation. And that thing, based on what I found, could express itself in the physical world through toxic chemicals or like cellular diseases like viruses, like COVID or cancer, or mental illnesses like just these pervasive thoughts or even demonic ideas like possession or magic with shape shifting and things like that. Is that it's weird. I thought I saw an eye in my head. Is that these things are obviously to stop the radiation you would want to use the C60. I think the shungite that would help stop it. So EMF blockers can help stop that radiation, which since they block radiation, what I think they're really doing on a metaphysical level is that to us we think it just absorbs negative energy, so therefore it blocks EMF or radiation. But what I'm thinking is that something, its properties inside of it in the physical world lead to the blockage of the radiation. But what it's actually doing is something in it is killing that disease in the physical realm. So like why, if hypothetically that disease was a physical, like these physical bugs or worms that exist in the dream world, dream realm, and they literally eat holes into reality so that people can't distinguish fiction from reality anymore, is what they would do. And that could be mistaken as a form of omniscience, is that like someone with just normally thinking could think, I can see all of these emotions everywhere and all of these thoughts and ideas, like I can read people's minds. I just have all of this knowledge that seems to come from nothing. But it's actually not, that's not real. That's actually just their own thoughts and feelings and ideas being projected into their reality. So it's like it's not actually something's there, it's a delusion that caused by these holes of reality. So what I'm thinking is something with the shungite literally kills this disease. And like what I would think is in it is the high amount of carbon in it, the C60. So it's something in it does that. And that C60, what I found was also, it has very similar properties to diamond, and like graphite can be used for diamond, but pretty much diamond, which I know diamond is considered a like a very expensive, like eternal thing, because it's I think in the material world it's considered to be a perfect thing, is diamond, and that it's I think something about it, a diamond, actually it equally exists, like these things we consider very highly valuable crystals like diamonds can simultaneously exist in the physical and metaphysical world. So in the metaphysical world they look exactly the same as the physical world, and what that would do is potentially cut these worms or whatever. So it's that you imagine them as like worms in the dream realm, but the dream realm doesn't exist in the same physical properties as the world around us here. It's more like underwater where you can just like float around, which is why ghosts can float, is because their attachment to the physical world is through the dream realm. So it's tied to specific objects, where their house, where they slept and had dreams in, or things they brought with them to sleep, or things they dreamt about. Those are the things that tie them to the physical realm. And even though the world of the dead is separate from the dream world, they can access the physical world through the dream world. And what these worms or whatever can, like, they're it's like they're swimming around like in a 3 or 4 dimensional space of like going just like underwater. I refer to like the physical world here as 4 dimensional, not 3 dimensional. Is because for the fourth dimension is the electromagnetic fields, which connect us to other realms, and you can actually see them by like a change of perspective of like field of view and things like that. Is or just like distortion or sound, whatever. Just like a movement, I mean. Is like movement is the fourth dimension. It's like 3 dimensional things don't move at all. They're just like completely still, but they're touchable objects. But the fourth dimension is also movement, which is what allows the realms to connect with one another. And what's different about Diamond is that it channels energy so effectively that even just thoughts or emotions, those energies or the carbon you breathe out can channel into the diamond and actually transport into other realms because they're so energy efficient. And the point I was making with like the diamond with killing the disease is that I think it acts as like a pieces of glass like sliding against it, because the thing with the disease I found based on the characteristics is that they are blind, so they can't see. They can hear extremely well, like a bat, but they can't see at all. They're blind. And they have no imagination at all because they're worms. And so something lives in the dream realm, it doesn't have an imagination because that's where the imagination is. If its physical body is in the dream realm, it does not have an imagination. And it is so closely intertwined with memories that it could perceive itself as not having memories. Like hypothetically, if a person was there, but they can. It's just that the memories are physically there with them. So it could be that it's just physically far away, and so that they can't access it. So whereas with a person physically in the physical world, they could just think of it and it comes to them. But the dream world is much more massive than the physical world, but also much less closely connected. Everything's very large and far apart, which can mean that it's very difficult to navigate through. So it's like someone's memories of just the past day could be the size of maybe like an entire city. It's like, and you have billions of people, and then it's like the dream world is practically non-travelable by people. But what planets do to make it easier is that what nature is supposed to do is allow a median for every dream world to connect harmoniously. And when it does that, then we have a commonality, which is what we know as the physical world. The problem with disease is that diseases live in the metaphysical world, but can express themselves in the physical world, but they naturally live in the metaphysical one. So they naturally want to draw you as a physical person away into the metaphysical realm with them. Because the closer you are to them in that state, the bigger they are, and the more chunks they can take out of you because you're physically there with them. So it's what do you think? Crap, I just forgot. It was So what you would want to do with that is like crap, I need to think. You need to make sure you are connected to your physical environment. So the problem I've found with all the diseases I've found in nature is that they actively discourage you connecting to the natural environment because they they're just like they emit these like white noise. All they do is just block out every sound. And that's why Satan is referred to as wanting to isolate people and make them feel alone so they can be attacked. Is that these diseases they uh they just emit white noise that blocks out everything. So when they are there, they're very distracting because all you can focus on is them because they just block out everything else. And if you're exposed to it long enough, you might begin to believe that that's the only reality there is that noise, and you might even grow fond of it. You might even listen to it as like a form of music. And so that's why music can be so healthy is that, or TV and things like that, is that they offer you different perspectives because what the disease thrives on is isolation. So one single perspective of the world. And you'd think isn't that what nature does though, is that we all harmoniously connect to one single perspective, but we don't. We connect to one physical reality where we can interact with each other, but our perspectives are completely different and they're even encouraged to be different. And that's what art does, is allow the creation of different perspectives that exist separately from our own. And what diseases want to do is separate us from the physical world and try to make ourselves physical into the metaphysical world. And that's when you get into things that we consider to be mentally unhealthy, even if they don't have any scientific physical cause. And that's also where you get into demonic possession and demons, is that of the demons and the root of these dream-related diseases, they're the same thing. Is that what's referred to as sin is really these worms or serpent-like eel diseases that thrive on, I would label them more as leeches. What they want more than anything is blood. Is they thrive on blood. And that's why they're so connected to iron, unfortunately, is that's what gives them power. Is that the iron in the blood is what connects them to the realm of iron, where every realm of minerals there is a different realm for each mineral, and iron is one of them, but is extremely important because it's found on many planets and the core of the earth and every person's blood. So if you learn to control iron, then you could be connected to the root of the human world. And I think that's what diseases have done, is that they feed on the blood so that they can use the iron to control the reality of the earthly realm. And that's actually stopping, I think, uh, the natural order of nature. And I think nature now is dying. I think most of it's dead already. So it is, I think, in like a unfortunately in like an apocalyptic state. And if hypothetically though, if it was killed off very quickly, then it would be just removed and I think replenished. It could be replenished very quickly. The problem with these diseases is that they're extremely aggressive and they don't rest at all. So you imagine them being in the dream realm, they exist there, which is where immortality can be found. And they, based on what I know, is like they don't die. But what you can do, you can kill them, but they don't naturally die off on their own. And the reason that's important is because that means they could spread from family member to family member. Is that when you're connected with the family and your dreams merge and combine through living in the same household and sharing the same life, is that in the dream world, it's just like moving to the house next over. It's like they can physically just move over to you from them, from those people. And that's where you get family diseases like alcoholism and things like that. It's like these expressions of these diseases in the metaphysical world.